Welcome to the Sneaking Into the Movies podcast. I'm Max Nathan.
And I'm Norman Davis. And this week we have a very special episode for y'all. We have an interview with an independent filmmaker named Stefan Graaff. In 2020, he co-wrote and co-directed a movie called Simmer, and right now he is currently promoting and bringing his new film, One of Us, starring Kit Connor, to festivals. But first, Max, something you want to share with the class?
Yes, the Sneaking Into the Movies marathon for February is on. We've extended the deadline to submit your totals to March 13th. For more information on how you can participate in the Sneaking Into the Movies marathon, go to our pinned post on Instagram. As always, submit your totals at the link in our bio for a chance to win a $10 gift card to the theater of your choice and the chance to make Norman and I do an episode on a movie of your choice. Without further ado, let's get into the interview.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
We have a very special guest on the podcast today. This is Stefan Graaff, an independent filmmaker based in London. Stefan, welcome to the podcast, and how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to chat with you.
Awesome.
Thanks
So,
for coming on.
tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, kind of like where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Chicago, and then have been doing film or film adjacent things for basically my entire life now. I think I picked up my first camera when I was about 8. My parents had an old camcorder that I took from them. I didn't know how to edit, so I started by literally just hitting the record button and then stopping it at the end of a line or whatever.
Yep.
So it'd effectively be editing in real time.
Yep.
But eventually I learned how to edit too. And that eventually, years later, after spending some time in the advertising world, I ended up getting back to my true passion, which is film. And I've now done 2 films, and I'm working on a third, and just trying to make it in the industry.
Of course, of course. I want to back up just a little bit to your background in digital advertising, because that's very interesting to me, because I'm kind of doing something a little bit similar at the moment. How did you kind of gravitate towards that as you kind of balanced your passion for filmmaking?
So, you guys are from Texas. I'm from Chicago. I think that there's a little bit of maybe like a similar mindset where I think that we tend to be pretty pragmatic people. We're not surrounded by a bunch of people who work in the arts. Like everybody's a little bit put your head down, do something. And so I felt like when I was going to college, it felt maybe irresponsible or something to study film.
Yes.
And I remembered when I realized that I wasn't going to go and get a business degree, I called my mom, and I was a little nervous because I didn't, anyways, get into the whole history of my mom, but I didn't want her judgment for not doing business school.
Yes.
And so I picked the next closest thing that was somewhat more adjacent to what I wanted to do.
Yep.
While still being something that was, you could call home and say that this is what you're going to study. So I studied advertising, and used that as sort of the pragmatic thing to do.
The bridge, yeah.
As the bridge.
Yeah, I also find that there's a lot of transmissible skills, because if you're going out and doing production and that kind of thing,
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I was on set all the time, and
Yep.
it gave me a language for film, and maybe most importantly, it gave me a network. I think that most, first time or early filmmakers that don't have industry connections from family or friends, that's the thing that they don't have, is they don't have a network to go and make films. And I was able to cultivate a little bit of a network. I was living in Utah at the time. That's where we were doing all of our productions. And I was able to cultivate a bit of a relationship with DPs and ACs and writers and hair and makeup artists, wardrobe, all these things that are just sort of some of the prerequisites to be able to make a film in the first place.
Yep.
And so, all of those repetitions on set, making hundreds of commercials, it ended up being very, very useful, I think. And like you said, very transmissible.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's transition into filmmaking now. You describe yourself as a writer, director. I'd imagine you've done some producing as well, just by nature of having to, distribute your own film and promote yourself. I want to ask, when did you write your first feature-length screenplay?
The first time I wrote a completed feature film was in 2016, I think. Yeah, it was 2016, and I had actually tried to write one when I was about 11. I only made it like 15 pages into it,
Okay.
and then I burned out, which ironically is an issue that a lot of writers experience. But
It's a common experience.
yeah, that wasn't totally
Canon event.
unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I wrote a film called Simmer in 2016, and I brought it to a friend who I would end up going on to make the film with. He was the co-director and co-writer on the film with me.
Yes.
But that was like the first time I had written a feature. But again, to your point, Max, like because I had done all of this advertising work and I'd put on a producer hat, when I wrote my first feature, I wrote a feature that I knew I could produce.
Yeah.
Which I think is sometimes the mistake that first time filmmakers make, is that they go and they just write, what's interesting to them, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
But then they end up with a film that's going to cost $20 million to make, which they're never going to get.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was like fortunate in that sense that when I sat down to write, I remember thinking I had that constraint immediately. I was in the box of what could I actually produce today? And even in writing locations where it's like, oh, I could get access to that location. This scene could take place there. And literally just using that in real time, thinking like a producer in real time.
Yeah.
That's was very useful in actually getting something that was eventually green lightable.
So when you're actually writing, do you kind of have that producer hat on as well? Like, are you thinking about that as you're writing, or do you have to kind of distance yourself from that kind of thinking?
It's a really good question. So on Simmer, definitely was wearing the producer hat. Or at least I would say, maybe I'd put it this way. I don't think that I was wearing it in the action of actually writing scenes and dialogue.
Okay.
But I think that I very much used it as the sandbox in which I could play.
Okay.
So before I sat down to start writing, I said, what are the pieces that I have? Well, I've got access to this location. Ooh, I know somebody that could help me, with this. And anyways, kind of going through that exercise. And I used that as the framework that said, that is the boundaries with, if I paint within those boundaries, I should have something that I could go and make. But then in the actual process of like sitting down and writing the scenes, I think I just wrote. I think it was more of a creative exercise.
Okay.
And then, but I would say that it was even more heightened as a creative experience, the second film that I made, just because I was, I think, striving to think less about the production side and more just about writing something that I was authentically what I wanted to make.
Okay. And we should also say that we're talking a lot about your film Simmer, which was released in 2020. It's currently on Amazon Prime. So you made this for $75,000. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, like, was there ever a bigger version of the movie that you had to kind of scale back because of the budget, or was it always intended to be just like this?
No, there was actually a smaller version of the film.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
it got bigger.
You don't hear that
Yeah.
ever.
Okay.
No, I know. We were the opposite. Again, I had written really into the constraints. And then when I brought in my writing and directing partner, Nick, he kind of was like, I think that we can push this scene. I think that we could do a little bit more here. And so I think originally when we wrote it, we were hoping to make the film for somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000.
Okay.
That is more or less what we did, with the caveat that as we finished production, we really were like out of money, and we knew that we needed to go and raise money for post-production. And then often something that first-time filmmakers don't account for is the distribution piece of it too.
Yes.
It costs money to submit to festivals. It costs money to deliver it to HBO, who we originally sold it to before it was sold to Amazon Prime. When you're in the process of that delivery, you are going to have to pay for certain things to be done that we had not accounted for. So that's how it ended up becoming a $75,000 film. Was we needed more money for post and we needed money for distribution and delivery. But yeah, so originally we were like, oh, I think we could do this for like 50 grand, which ended up not being entirely true.
So post and distribution came out to around 25K. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Yeah. So were there any other kinds of were there any other kinds of challenges with working with that micro budget, or was it kind of just the unexpected challenges that you ran into?
I had the composer on the film, his good friend Christian Dureas, like he kind of once said it interestingly. We were all in our 20s, basically everybody that was like working on the film. We were all in our 20s when we made it, and so we were time rich and cash poor.
Yes.
And so that, made it so that we could get people working for rates that like I would say even now I would say is like, I don't know that it was unethical at the time, but now I certainly would probably view it as more unethical. No, it wasn't unethical. These were like friends, and at the end of the day, like, you make an offer, you say, hey, can you come on for $200 a day? Everybody was paid. I will give us credit for that, because I know that a lot of indie films, like some people come and they don't even get paid. Everybody got paid. But sometimes it was like the range of rates was like from $50 a day to $250 a day, I think was the highest paid person. Which, that's like nothing. That's the only other thing that I would say is like challenging, is that you are going to people who are friends, and you're asking them to work on a project where nobody's getting rich on it. And you're hoping that they'll say yes and come attached. And we had people that dropped out along the way. They were like, I thought I could do it. It's just not worth it. So you deal with stuff like that. But otherwise, no, like I think, again, because we had gone into it very much with some experience producing, we kind of knew like, oh, this is how much that's going to cost, and this is what we could get that for. And we were able to leverage that. Another big one that we leveraged was we had done so many commercial productions that we went to a lot of the equipment rental houses and said like, hey, can you do us a solid? Like, could you just give us, instead of like, could you give us a discount on the week rate instead of being a 4-day week rate? Could you give us a 3-day week rate kind of thing? And there were places that were willing to do that.
Yeah. What are some of the, like, because we have an audience that, we're filmmakers ourselves, and we have an audience that is interested in this kind of thing. What are some of the ways in which you were able to keep that budget down, in terms of creative things that people might not think of off the top of their head?
Okay, let's get into this, because I think that there are two pieces that I think are just like way too gate kept. One of them is the raising money side, and the other is the spending money side. Like, we just don't talk enough about how to do that strategically, so that you can make films. And so I'm happy. I'm like a very open book about this. I don't believe in gatekeeping. I think that a rising tide raises all ships. I want everybody to be able to make their films.
Of course.
On the keeping budgets down, first of all, you have to be bold enough to ask. You would be shocked at the amount of things that are available to you if you just ask. And sometimes you have to ask, and you have to be a little bit clever, or you have to be willing to compromise. So as a good example of this, in Simmer, one of the main locations, I'll just talk through locations and how you can get some pretty awesome places for not that expensive.
Yeah.
One of the main locations is a beautiful resort in the mountains outside of Park City. We went and approached them, and we said, what is the slowest time of year for you guys? We need to shoot for a week. And we can come in at nights after you guys have closed up, and we can be all cleaned out of the way by the time you guys are, getting ready to open. And we want to do it in the season when you have nothing going on. They were like, February. February is dead. Because it's a golf course. It's on a golf course. And so they're like, February is really quiet.
Okay.
And so immediately you go from spending, $10,000 to rent a location like that to like $2,000 because they're like, you're not going to be in our way. This is money that we would not have had otherwise. Let's do you a solid. Like, yeah, you guys can come in here. Same thing with the interior, which we shot at a different kitchen. There's a lot of kitchen scenes in it. The interior of the kitchen, we shot at a resort not too far away because we needed a big industrial kitchen. We shot it at a resort further away. And in that instance, we just said, look, we are going to have all of this really nice footage. We're shooting it on a nice camera. We've got professional lighting that's coming in. What if we just gave you the footage at the end? You can use it for your own promotional materials.
Wow.
We'll give you the footage if you guys can do us a solid on the rate. Same thing. And it went from being, again, something that probably would have been, I think we shot there also for a week. It's been a few years now, but like I think we shot there also for about a week. And again, just like working around their time schedule, just like when is it good for us to come in and get out of your way. And again, we got a location that probably would have been $10,000 or so for like $1,000. Because it was like, look, well, you're going to get all this footage. You can use it in your own promotional activities. They were willing to do that. And then finally, like we're in a house for a lot. We literally just went on Zillow. We knew that we wanted like a double wide mobile home. And we literally just like were shopping around all these different mobile home parks in the area. And we went on Zillow and there was one that was like for sale. And we just messaged the owner and said, look, well, it's on the market. Can we pay you $1,000 to come in and film? And like it's already cleaned out, so we can dress it however we want to dress it. And it's $1,000 that he was not going to make otherwise. It's literally just sitting there. And we said, we can be accommodating. If somebody has to come and view it, you just let us know in advance. And we can make sure that we're not, bothering on any of that on that front. But otherwise, let us come in and throw up a room and put in some stuff to make it presentable for the film. And we can shoot there. And again, it was just like, yeah, no problem. Like, and awesome. I think so when your location budget, gets cut by, I don't know, 75, 80% of what it would have cost if we hadn't just done a little bit of haggling, a little bit of strategic, like, let's work around your schedule. But otherwise, we just asked and people are like, yeah, that's fine. Like, we'd be happy to do it. And I think that the production value that we got for what we paid is just like,
it's incredible. Crazy. The resort is incredible.
That's
insane.
The
resort's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool. And to know, again, like literally, we got it for $2,000 for a week's worth of filming. It's like you couldn't shoot at your parents' house for that amount of money. You know what I mean? They would charge you more than that. So, so anyways, I think that you just got to ask for one, and then you just got to keep everything lean and put it towards the things that are going to come out on screen. I think that this is the other place where first-time filmmakers often trip up is, for better and worse, we have adopted a model of filmmaking, most filmmakers, that was really created in the 50s in Hollywood.
Okay.
And if you look at a budget today compared to a budget then, and a budget breakdown, it looks largely the same. Mm-hmm. The industry has changed fundamentally since then.
Yes.
For one thing, like even let's just talk about something as simple as lighting. Okay, you used to need a gaffer and a grip and a dolly grip and a swing and a best boy and a et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
In part because when you had to move a light, the light weighed 350 pounds. Like you needed a bunch of hands to move it.
Yep.
Well, now an LED weighs 2 pounds. Like you can go and move it. You can move 2 of them at once by yourself.
Yep.
And so I would just say, like, don't get too trapped in trying to mirror something. And yes, some of that does come out obviously on screen. And I'm not trying to say fire everybody. Like, maybe I'm trying to say that a little bit, but like, I think what's important is just that, like, what is definitely going to be on screen? Mm-hmm. Your sound is definitely going to be on screen.
Yes.
Your lighting is definitely going to be on screen. Your actors are definitely going to be on screen. So those are 3 places. Don't skimp. Yeah. Your locations, they're definitely going to be on screen. But then you start getting into things that it's like, it's on screen, but is it perceptible? If you're just in an average, like we were in like an average urban film, I could promise you, I could ask you what the people were wearing in the film, and you probably have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's because like it just falls out of the view of what you're seeing.
Yep.
Is it worth spending gobs and gobs of money on wardrobe and a wardrobe artist and a wardrobe team if your film is, if that's going to fall away in the film anyway? If you're doing something that is Cruella, then yeah, you're going to spend because that is like a huge monumental piece of the film.
Yes.
But otherwise, it's like, dude, like you just buy stuff off of Amazon and you throw it on the actors and you try to get stuff that fits the character and you just stop worrying about it. Just go make the movie. Like, don't let that be the reason why it's like, I can't get a budget. I can't afford three wardrobe people to come in. It's like, well, you don't need to. Like, you can just do it yourself.
Everybody has clothes anyway as well.
You got clothes. You got clothes. Like, just bring them. Ask the talent to bring them. And I know some of that's not kosher, but I think it's only not kosher because, again, we're operating from an adopted framework from a time when films were made very differently with a lot more money. And frankly, like, we're living in a world where money is very hard to come by.
Yes.
People's salaries haven't gone up in the last 30 years. And it's just like, you got to get lean then. You got to get smart about how you make a film.
Yeah.
But you got to make the film. That's the thing you have to do.
Yes. Yeah. It comes down to, like, the industry doesn't seem to be as healthy. The world generally doesn't seem to be as healthy. And we have to be scrappier as filmmakers in deciding what is important and what's not in order to get these movies made.
And it is worth mourning that for a moment.
Yeah.
But then when you're done mourning it, you got to just get up and do it. You got to go and make the film anyway. And if you can only do it with 5 people in a handful of locations and 1 actor, then that's the film you got to go write. Is the things that you have power with it, power to do. Yep.
So let's move on here and talk about the distribution side a little bit. You mentioned that there's like a whole, I think your subject line in your introductory email was talking about the new age of distribution. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm sure, like, if you spend any time even just on, Hollywood Reporter or Daily or a Deadline, like, you're going to see, or Screen Daily, like, you're going to see all these kinds of articles talking about the festivals and how independent films are not selling coming out of them. There has been a massive implosion in the film sales market in the last couple of years.
Okay.
As a consequence of that, the traditional frameworks that have existed for how to get a film distributed are rapidly evolving. And I think that young filmmakers, rather than looking at that and feeling pessimistic, I think they need to look at that chaos as an opportunity. To rewrite the rules of how films get distributed. And something that I am a firm believer in and that I think is being manifested more and more all the time is, for example, what just happened with Markiplier and his massive, debut.
Yeah.
That only happens because he has a massive audience.
Yes.
But we shouldn't say that in like a flippant, oh, well, he can only do that because he has a massive audience. It's like, no, he can do that because he has a massive audience. So if he can greenlight his own projects and make millions of dollars on his film, then don't be mad at him having a massive audience. That's the new framework. The new framework is you have to build an audience for your piece. And the beauty is, I don't think you need tens of millions of followers to do that. I think that indie film can be made very affordably now. And you would be shocked at how little you actually need in revenue to be able to recoup, which is something that most indie films never even sniff. Recoupment. Like that's just something that it's almost like a known joke in the industry that it's like, oh, you made an indie film, well, there's no way you made your money back. Whereas now I think that the distribution is evolving to where you are going to own more of your audience. That is going to be a demand. I mean, what you guys are doing, for example, with the podcast, you are going to have an audience of people that you can say, guys, we're trying to make this film and we need, people to come and follow the Instagram for the film so that when it's released, we can use that to go and show to distributors that we actually have an audience for this and blah, 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 blah. And now you actually might get a deal. I think that that amongst many other thoughts that I have about the current state of affairs when it comes to film distribution is that if you thought that the pathway was still make the indie film, get it into Sundance, sell it to Neon for $15 million in a bargaining war with A24,
Sure.
get a bunch of money, get a reverse pickup deal from those studios to go and make your next 3 feature films. If that's the pathway that you thought still existed for you, I would say that there's maybe one person on the planet or 2 people on the planet who that pathway might exist for anymore. And it's not me.
Okay.
And if you rolled the dice, I'd say, unfortunately, it's probably not you guys, and it's probably not 99.9999% of other indie filmmakers.
Okay.
It's better to just say, that's not the model. That's not what's going to happen for us. Instead, I would say, look at what Markiplier did. Look at what the people at Creator Camp did with 2 Sleepy People.
Yes. Yeah.
Which maybe you guys have heard about.
Yep.
And again, the only reason why you've heard about it is because they built an audience.
Yes.
And they didn't have Markiplier's pre-existing audience. They went and built an audience for a film.
Yep.
It can be done. And it's going to take some planning, and it's going to take some marketing, which, Max, you have. And I would encourage any of your listeners, start to get a little familiar with how to do some marketing. And pretty soon you'll own your audience. And I think that is the new distribution models. You have to be able to sell the idea to your own people less than you have to sell the idea to Netflix, who they will buy it, but they will probably buy it after it's been validated by everybody else.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting in a sense that with the Markiplier thing, that movie that's at $50 million, I believe, like the total gross. It's insane. It's a huge hit. He made it for nothing, but he's made probably his money 20 times over already. But I do think it's interesting how we're talking about building an audience through social media and the internet and really reaching people that way. And I just think it's interesting that now we're kind of in a place where movies are not necessarily the dominant form of communication and entertainment. And in the early 2010s, maybe we were making movies that were, and I'm not saying all movies did this, but some movies were kind of, iterating on the internet. And now I feel like we're in a place where the internet is iterating on movies in a lot of ways. And
It's well said.
I just think it's an interesting trend. I don't know where we're going with that, but it's interesting. I just wanted to point it out. But
Well, one thing that I think is a takeaway from that is if you are an independent filmmaker, a decent, again, you look at the eyeballs, a decent sized YouTube channel run by one person gets a similar amount of weekly views as Saturday Night Live.
yes.
Yeah.
So immediately, if that doesn't set off some alarm bells in your head that the SNL way of making content is broken, then I don't know what else is going to wake you up to that fact. That one person in their bedroom is able to have as much exposure to society as this massive production. And that is true for, literally fill in the blank. It's not just SNL. You could just put in any other kind of major film that's coming that way.
We just had, I don't know if you followed the Democratic nominee for Senate in Texas, James Tallarico, went on Stephen Colbert. They took the interview down, goes on YouTube. It gets way more views than it would have had just on the show.
On prime
Anything
time.
on his channel ever, yeah.
So this is the thing, is that, again, don't adopt the old frameworks. There are pieces of it that are worth adopting, I should say, but you don't need to take the whole thing part and parcel. I think that if you understand that there are filmmakers that are making content that gets millions and millions of views with crews of 3 to 5 people, you got somebody who's coming up with the idea and somebody who's shooting it and somebody who's editing it and maybe somebody who's acting in it or a couple of people, that is the model of what people are looking for. And I just think that when you're going to make your films, I even think that in the industry, I think that I'm trying to still make films in a somewhat conventional way, but my crew size is getting smaller and smaller with each production. Like I really
Interesting.
think the dream that I think some people have of being on like a Spielberg type set where you've got 200 people
Yeah.
and everybody's doing something and there's like this little factory going on, that will still exist. It will just exist for fewer and fewer people
Yeah.
that will have that opportunity.
Yeah.
For everybody else, I think you got to look at the music industry and what happened there, because I think it's a bit of a harbinger for what's going to happen in film. It's SoundCloud. Like you went from bands going into studios with 5 people and they're all recording their own instrument and it was a big production and da 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 da, to the most famous artists like, oh, I put some stuff on SoundCloud and posted it on Instagram and now I'm one of the most known artists in the world.
Yep.
Like that is going to be the model, at least for the foreseeable future. And again, it's not going to completely dismantle the old way. I don't think that Hollywood is all of a sudden going to implode into an oblivion. I just think it's going to become harder and harder to make that type. And there will be more and more appetite for making the really small, lean thing that's very creative heavy, that's very niche down. It's not built for everybody. It's built for a niche of people that are just the true fans of it.
Yep.
I think that that's my prediction anyway. It sounds like
Okay.
that's yours too.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. I also, so you mentioned you got 1 million views on Facebook in the lead up to selling Simmer to HBO Max. What are some of the creative ways that you kind of were able to like obtain those views, I guess I should say?
It's a really good question. So we did 2 things. Again, my background was in digital marketing, so I was like pretty familiar with how the platforms worked and how the algorithm was being trained. And what we did was we held a screening for Simmer, private screening for people that worked, cast, crew, friends and family kind of thing. There's probably about 200 people there, and we posted an unlisted post on Facebook. Facebook was still like kind of a bit of the video platform at the time, whereas now like nobody really goes and watches videos on Facebook anymore.
Yeah.
But at the time, there was still a bit of a demographic there. So we had everybody go in the theater. We had them pull out their phones and go. We shared the link to the unlisted post. The full film, hour and a half long, was on Facebook unlisted. We had them go and play it in the background in their pockets while they watched the film on the big screen.
Okay.
And the reason we did that is because we knew that algorithmically, Facebook is more likely to show something that has been shared after it's been viewed than somebody who just clicks like or share the second that they land on it.
Yeah.
Because it sends the wrong signal. If you just land on something and click share, the Facebook algorithm is saying, wait, what's that share about? You haven't even seen the thing yet.
Yep.
Whereas if you've watched for an hour and a half and then you click share, Facebook's like, oh,
It's like, oh, this is a real
this
deal.
person, this is the real deal. This person sat for an hour and a half. And then, so we did that first. We asked anybody who was willing to share it. Not everybody did, but you start with 100 or so shares.
Sure.
And all of these organic views and really positive organic comments. Oh my gosh, I love the film. It was so fun, so good. You get all this like positive sentiment in the comments, and immediately you start spilling over into this organic reach.
Yes.
And so we let that roll for about 24 hours, and then we actually took the entirety of the film and ran it as an ad. That same post that has all these comments on it and all the views and all the shares, you can now promote that post. We ran that whole film as an ad. So at the beginning of the film, Nick and I had recorded a little thing saying, in 15 seconds, you're about to see the full-length feature of Simmer. And in exchange for being able to watch it for free, all we ask for is a share.
Okay.
And so 24 hours later, we had 1 million views, and we had close to 10,000 shares, and we had thousands of comments from people saying, this is so cool, I can't believe they did this. It was an hour and a half long ad. It was obviously a skippable ad, but like literally you could just sit there and watch it for an hour and a half. That's how long the ad was, because we knew that Facebook, their limit was, I think, was like 2 hours. You could have like up to 2 hour long ads. And so we, rather than running an ad to drive to the film, we just ran the film as the ad. Which, as it turns out, you're not supposed to do. We didn't know that. You're not supposed to do it because if your film gets overexposed, then you won't be able to sell it. And so the fortunate consequence of this, though, was that a sales agent reached out to us and said, guys, you have to take this down. Like,
Okay.
if too many people see this, we'll never be able to sell the film. And that started the journey into the sales agency world and the distribution world, where eventually we sold to HBO. But before that, we had kind of gamified this thing where we were getting really positive sentiment and kind of proved that there was a market for it.
Okay. Awesome.
That is just genius. By
Yeah.
the way. I mean, wow. That's
Or reckless, but that line is oftentimes blurry.
hey, if it works, it works. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems to work for you, so.
Yeah,
That's
it worked
great.
out.
Yeah. How many of those screenings did you do where you had people, play it in their pocket?
Oh, that's a $1 million question right there. We did one,
Okay.
but if I did that strategy again, I would probably do. I mean, I think that that's probably similar to what Creator Camp people have done, is that they've done these limited screenings. I actually don't know if they did that with the algorithm thing. They should have if they hadn't. But anyways, they've done all these screenings, and it would have been smart to do that. That would have been a really good idea, Max. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I'm when I do this, I'm definitely going to do that strategy.
I have a better strategy.
Okay.
I think I have a better strategy now.
Do
You
tell.
guys want to hear it?
Yes.
Somebody should go do this, and I don't blame me if it doesn't work. But this is what I would do today. Right now, what the average indie filmmaker is looking for, if it's not just financial recoupment, but let's just say table the financial recoupment and let's first build a market for the film. What I would do is I would create a sort of aggregate launch of the film with film pages. So what I would do is I would say influencer integrations are not that expensive. If you reach out to, let's say like an indie film page on YouTube or Facebook or wherever, TikTok, let's say that they've got 500,000 followers. There's a couple things to know about this. One, a lot of the people running those accounts are just like people who are doing it in their free time. They just do it because they like films.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like us.
They're like you guys. They're not making a lot of money off of it, if any. And there are thousands of them. You could probably go to those people and pay them $100 or $200 to shout out your film. I would say you could also probably pay them $100 or $200 or maybe a little bit more to release your film. So what if you strung together 100 of those? You now are going to be getting exposure to tens of millions of people.
Yes.
We're everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere. Every single person in that follows an indie film page is going to have heard about your film now.
Yeah.
You'll have spent a fraction of what you would have. You probably would spend a similar amount just applying to film festivals, to be honest. The difference is that you would now be like a household name amongst indie filmmakers.
Yes.
And your film would have been directly. So you basically turn them into an aggregate version of AMC or something.
Yeah.
You're saying each one of you is going to represent a box office. And you have to decide what you're going to ask for as to the people who view the film in exchange for being able to see it for free. But I would say build an audience. Say all I ask for in exchange is for you to come and follow me.
Yeah.
And subscribe to my podcast or follow my Substack or follow me on Instagram. That's all I ask for in exchange. If what you woke up with is 500,000 followers or 100,000 followers in 6 weeks, you're ready. You can now go and make your next film. You can greenlight it.
Let's talk more about this. Let's take a little break here, Stefan. We're about to get cut off, but we'll resume this conversation in a moment.
Sounds good. Be back in a second.
So after getting those views on Facebook, you sold Simmer to HBO Max. What was the process of selling your movie to HBO Max like?
So it's pretty. I think that our situation is pretty common from what I understand from other filmmakers in that it came out in 2020, so we didn't have any festivals. We got into one festival that happened just before COVID, but otherwise there was no festivals that we had premiered at or anything. And so sort of what will happen for a lot of indie films is you will sell. The goal is that you'll find a sales agent. As a warning, there are a lot of shady figures in the sales agent world. A lot of
Shocker.
people who know how to make money off of you who care very little about you making any. You guys are nodding your heads, so I'm assuming that means you've heard stories or you've experienced it.
I don't have any experience with it, but it's not terribly surprising that there's
Yeah.
some shady actors in this arena.
Like every other industry in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, we're no different in that respect. And so, fortunately, again, as a consequence of sort of like our little marketing stunt, we were able to have conversations with, I think, some really good sales agents for first-time filmmakers. And eventually we partnered with a sales agency called Sublimity, and I'd recommend them. They're really good guys. And they sort of like walked us through the whole process of how you sell films internationally and territory by territory and all these things and start, the process of recouping. And eventually they sold, and this is what I think is sort of typical, is they sold to sort of an intermediary distributor called Level 33. And Level 33 then took the film, and I suspect that they packaged it with a bunch of other probably like urban thriller films.
Okay.
And my suspicion, again, I don't know all of the details of it, but my suspicion is that they bundled it together with a bunch of other films because our film doesn't have any name talent in it. There's no name directors attached to it or anything. There was really nothing to note about it, other than that it was completed and it fit sort of a certain genre. And because of that, we were able. They likely had an opportunity to pitch into HBO, who was likely had some internal mandate of a certain amount of IP that they had to acquire that year. And I think that we were just in that shuffle. So it's not like we approached HBO or anything and had, some exec who said, I love it. I want to, this is the best film I've ever seen made for $75,000 or anything like that. Like, it was likely something much more trivial, and just that, like, we got into the right hands particular package. They sold it to HBO and we got a portion of that sale as revenue forward of the film. But it's a great outcome, and we, leased it to HBO for 3 years, which is a pretty standard time that you'll lease it to like a streamer. And that was strictly the streaming on demand revenue. Then you can also still sell TVOD and other things like that, which I'm more than happy to explain if any of that is like kind of new information or whatever. But at the end of the day, that was how it got onto HBO. It wasn't like through some crazy magical experience or anything.
Okay. So you mentioned TVOD. So it spent time on TVOD prior to going to streaming?
It kind of did those rounds somewhat simultaneously. So like when you go and you look up a film and you see the list of all the places that you can watch it, it's not uncommon for one of them to say, included in subscription. That's going to be the streaming on demand deal. This is, as I understand, I'm not the expert, and somebody listening in could correct me on some of this, but as I understand it and how I've seen it on the back end is, so you have that deal, and then you have the TVOD deal, which would be the ones where people are actually coming on and, they're watching it for free or something, but there's advertising on it, or they're paying. No, sorry, that would be an AVOD deal where there's advertising. That's Tubi or whatever. And then you have their TVOD, which is going to be the places where you can go and rent it. It's Amazon, it's YouTube. And so I think we were on all of those platforms after we had sold to HBO, because there was, a separate aggregator who put it on those other sites. And then when our lease was up, or when the lease was up with HBO after 3 years, then it got sold to Amazon Prime, so that's why you can watch it on streaming there now.
So, did you have any input in the process of it moving over to Amazon Prime from HBO, or is that a total corporate thing?
It's all kind of happening. I don't think that that was an instance where like Amazon acquired it wasn't like Discovery HBO where it was just like, oh, they're going to acquire all of the rights, or like what
Sure.
happened with Warner Brothers. It's not like that. I think in this instance, it was literally just a sales agent saying the 3 years are up there. Where
Hmm.
should the film live now? And putting it onto a different streamer. Um, and so, and while that's happening, they're also doing that same kind of exercise internationally.
Hmm.
You have pay per view. Like
Hmm.
there's all these different kind of domains that they can sell,
Hmm.
and your hope is that you can recoup
Hmm.
after agent marketing fees and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I also think I probably know the answer to this, but I just want to ask to make sure. Are you seeing any kind of like residual revenue from streams on either HBO or Amazon?
No, they don't. They don't pay. At least not for a film of our size. Maybe it's different when you get to a different caliber. But
Okay.
there is no. This is actually something that bothers me is that it's very gate kept on. It's a total black box when you talk about viewership.
Yes.
I don't have any idea how many people ever watched Simmer on HBO. I have no
Yeah.
clue.
This is what the strikes were largely about in 23, I believe.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And in my opinion, with a lot of merit, because if you are going to be acquiring something that then becomes the most valuable IP that you have, it's really only fair that the people who made that originally stand to gain something on the upside as well,
Mhm.
especially if they're not being compensated, super fairly, or not fairly, but they're being, maybe undercompensated in the beginning.
Mhm.
And I think that everybody would be happy to move to a little bit more of a performance revenue model where it's like,
Yes.
if my film does really well, I want to share in the upside. If it doesn't do very well, then I want to, I recognize that I'm not going to make as much. That doesn't exist. So no, we have not gotten any residual checks or anything like that. You get a one-time fee. That's what they pay to lease the rights for a determined amount of time.
Mhm.
And once those rights are up, then you can go and sell the film again.
Gotcha. Okay.
Interesting.
So I want to move on to your new film. One of Us stars Kit Connor. Um, that's awesome that you got Kit Connor in the movie. How were you able to attract him to the project?
It's a good question. Um, it's the same way that like Rome isn't built in a day. The thing that I had my sales agent at Sublimity after Simmer, he said, because I didn't know, like I kind of assumed that it's like once you make a movie, you kind of like assume that everybody's gonna start calling you then,
Yeah.
and that all of a sudden you're gonna get other people's money to make movies and whatever. Unfortunately, that's not true. And what he said was really good advice. He said, "This film, no one is gonna call you because of this film. But you will be able to call other people and tell them that you have this film, and they will now listen to you. They'll give you you've earned some respect in the fact that you've completed an independent film."
Hmm.
And that was very true. So Simmer, nobody called us because of Simmer and said, "Oh, I'd love to find your next film."
Sure.
But what did happen is when we went out, and me and my producer, we started reaching out to people, talent agencies, other people to be involved in the project from cast and crew. There was a much more higher acceptance rate of people saying, "Oh yeah, what are you working on?" Because I think that the ultimate fear for talent agencies is not whether or not the film is going to have a big budget; it's whether or not the film is going to be completed. That's the
Hmm.
risk with indie film,
Yes.
and they don't want to send somebody to go and act in a film that never sees the light of day,
Yep.
or that maybe gets canceled, prior to them blocking off their schedule.
Hmm.
So in the Kit situation, we were able to we sort of cast around Kit first. We cast some other roles first,
Okay.
so that there was a little bit of a footprint in the film, and that it was recognized as being something that was going to happen. There was a nice, a growing cast that was looked interesting to be a part of. And then when we went to his agent, I think that there was a general willingness to look at the material and say, "I'm actually going to read this and see if it's the right thing." And fortunately for us, like a lot of stars aligned, but we were able to get Kit to sign on, and obviously he's just such a brilliant actor, and he's
Hmm.
done so much incredible work since
Yeah.
filming
Yep.
too. which has been really great for us. And it's not lost on me that in many respects I just get to ride on his coattails just a little bit. And so shout out to him for letting me do that.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that, right? We all got to ride on somebody's coattails, right?
That's how we're all doing it out here.
Yep. That is awesome. So you mentioned that you're going to Manchester Film Festival in March. Is that coming up?
That is coming right up. So March 28th, we are premiering the film at the Manchester Film Festival. I actually just checked earlier today, and tickets are basically sold out. We've got like a handful of tickets left.
Fantastic.
So it's going to be a really good premiere. There'll be plenty of people there. I think we'll have a really good time, and it will be nice to finally get this film out there. It's a much more, I would say, art house film. It's Simmer was strictly a genre piece. It's like that was a thriller. That's the genre that it fit into. One of Us is a much more nuanced film. It sits somewhere between suspense and psychological horror, but it is with a pretty big drama undertone. Like it doesn't fit quite as neatly, so we have an uphill battle when it comes to film sales.
Okay.
That
Sure.
That's the price you pay for making something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're rooting for you, of course.
That's nice. Thank you.
So you mentioned, this whole conversation has largely been about how the model for distributing films has changed dramatically. But you are going to this film festival in March. What is your strategy when it comes to film festivals as far as like maximizing your time at them?
Gosh, I don't know, you guys. Like, this is I'm so new at this. I am such a novice when it comes to the film festival circuit. Okay. I do have some trusted friends who have done it and done the big ones. They've done Sundance and Tribeca and things like that. And, they've given me some tips, and that, I mean, I can share that much, but largely, like, it will be my first rodeo. And so, the thing that I do know, well, there's two things actually I feel like I can say pretty confidently. One is that the film festival circuit is also undergoing a major change. And it is being used more and more all the time as a marketing platform as opposed to a talent scouting platform. So it used to be that, the next big filmmakers would come out of the big festivals. And if you premiered or won something at Sundance, you'd get a good deal and you'd likely be going on to make more things. That's not really true anymore. Most films out of Sundance this year didn't sell. And that's true for, I think, all the big five, is a lot of films weren't selling out of them, which is, that's relatively a new phenomenon. Which is, I think, sending a lot of people, it's scaring, I think, a lot of people in the industry. But it is still, and maybe more so all the time, being used as a marketing platform for films to find their audiences, and for those films to then go and try to cultivate kind of the audiences that we were describing previously.
Gotcha.
So for us, that's sort of our motivation. We're very honored to premiere at the Manchester Film Festival. They've got a great program. And I think we're very happy that it's happening in the UK and all those things, which aligns with where the film was shot and everything. I think it's really the beginning of a journey as opposed to the end of one. And then I guess, the second thing I was going to say that I think is true of festivals is just meet everybody. That is the other thing that, for a filmmaker's perspective, I think is what you can hope to glean from or to gain from participation in the festivals, is purely the networking, and not networking with, you can dream of networking with somebody who is going to be the executive producer who's going to cut you a check. I'm sure that every filmmaker has that same aspiration when they go to a festival. I would say that that's a little short-sighted. I would say that what you should be looking for are your peers. Who are the filmmakers that are coming up with you? Who are the people that are, kind of in a similar stage of the life cycle journey of a filmmaker as you? What can you learn from them? What can you share with them? And my attitude going into Manchester, and I would invite anybody else who's going to a festival, is to just treat it a little bit less selfishly. Go in to give something. Go in to find somebody and help them on their filmmaking journey, as opposed to just going in and trying to suck off of the teat of the filmmaking world and say, who's going to help me make my next thing? It's kind of let's start thinking about like other people as we enter these, and really just try to build a network somewhat altruistically, like without much expectation of something in return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. So, we're kind of just wrapping up here. We've got about like 4 minutes left with you. I know we kind of want to wrap this up here. Probably just to end the interview, I want to ask you what some of your cinematic inspirations are. Like, what are some of your favorite movies? What do you like? What are you thinking about right now?
Okay, this is like a really weird pretension of mine. I try to not watch films that have been. I will see some of them, but I try to not watch many films that have been released in the last 5 years.
Okay.
It's like a weird thing, and I know that it sounds like very pretentious. I will see some of them, but usually it's because there's so much media to consume today.
Yes.
That I think in a world where there's an overabundance of media, that the power is in curation. That is the power that we wield as creators, as filmmakers, as artists, is not in the consumption of a vast array of media. It's in the non-consumption of a certain kind of media, and in the curation of like a very selective, like if your mind is an art gallery, you're going to be very choosy about the things that you hang up there because you can't see everything.
Of course.
Yep. There are too many movies to be seen.
Yes.
And so I guess what I would say is that my inspiration right now has actually largely been looking farther and farther back and into more and more obscure corners of film that I think maybe didn't get the appreciation they deserved because they were overshadowed by something that was talked about a lot.
Okay.
And that to me has been a really nice grounds for finding things that are maybe slightly less known, and trying to curate something closer to what I don't believe in true originality. I don't think anything's truly original, but something that feels more original. If you ask me, like, name somebody that is like somebody who anybody would have seen, I would say I really like Ingrid Bergman's films right now.
Okay.
Ooh, okay.
In part because I think he is such a good analog for the new form of filmmaking.
Yeah.
That guy took the creative constraints and he used them masterfully. He was not afraid of using the same actors, of using the houses that they had, using the locations and small crews and the same DP, and just recycling through those things, but making things that were exploratory. And some of his films don't work. Like some of them, I feel like he would probably agree with me. Like that one didn't really stick the landing.
Okay.
But that's the point. Like he just made films, and then some of them he made, I think, are just absolutely transcendental. I think that they are some of the most important films ever made, and it's only because he just went out and he operated within those constraints. I think it's a really good analog for the modern form of filmmaking. They were niche. They were not made for everybody. I can't think of like a better sort of precursor or you know, sort of a John the Baptist type figure for the modern era of filmmaking, where it's like, get your people, do it small, do hyper creative, really niche stuff, and just own it. Like he had his audience. There were people who loved Bergman films, and that's I think the perfect model for how filmmakers should be approaching it today.
That is an awesome recommendation, Stefan. Thank you for coming on the podcast. This was an awesome conversation, and we hope you come on again.
Thank you for having me. I would love to come back. This has been a great chat.
Yeah, keep an eye out for one of us.
You can follow me at stefan.vdg on Instagram, and you can follow the film at film.oneofus. And if any of you happen to be in the UK at the end of March, let me know, and I'd love to see you at the premiere.